Hello everyone and welcome to my channel Y&R Trends. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. The morning air was thick with pressure outside the Abbott manse as flashing red and blue lights reflected off the pristine windows. The typically quiet road had erupted into chaos, neighbors gaping out from behind curtains, brooding frenetically, some telephoning their phones to capture the drama that was unfolding in real time. Newman, generally composed and calculating, was pacing the driveway, his jaw tight, his hands pulsing slightly despite the confident surface he tried to project. Across from him, his son Noah stood rigid, his eyes wide, the immature intransigence he'd inherited from his father now tainted by fear and query. The police auto door swung open and officers stepped out, their expressions serious, their eyes surveying the scene, taking in every detail. Newman? Noah Newman? One officer called, his tone professional but heavy with authority. Nick set mid-step, swapping a regard with Noah that was loaded with implied words. Shock, unbelief, a hint of wrathfulness. What is this about? Nick's voice was calm, but there was a brittle edge to it, a subtle earthquake betraying his fear. No commentary at this time, the officer said compactly, pulling out a set of bind. He stepped forward, his movements deliberate, leaving no room for argument. Noah's heart pounded in his casket, every instinct screaming at him to repel, to demand an explanation, but his father's calm authority held him in check. "Dad," he rumored, the single word heavy with fear and confusion. Nick's eyes softened compactly as he looked at his son, the weight of times and participated secrets pressing down on both of them. "We'll handle this, Noah," he muttered, his tone establishment yet defensive. "Stay calm. Just stay calm." The officers approached and in one nippy stir, Nick's wrists were secured in cold sword. He didn't blench. His pride would no way allow it. Noah followed, his youthful hands pulsing as they too were cuffed. The reality of the moment hit him like a tidal surge. The law, which he'd always allowed of as a distant abstract force, now had a particular grip on his life. "Please," Nick said, glancing around the driveway. "There has to be some mistake. This is a misreading." His voice cracked slightly, betraying the pressure he'd kept hidden for times. "Newman, you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law," the officer recited, his words heavy, each syllable sinking like a weight into Nick's casket. "Noah Newman, same rights apply to you." Noah swallowed hard, his mind racing. He'd always respected his father, had always believed in his moral compass, his unyielding sense of justice, but standing then shackled beside him, he felt a cold mistrustfulness creeping in. Could Dad really have? No, it didn't make sense. It couldn't. Neighbors had gathered now, their whispers growing louder, the air electric with enterprise. "Is that Newman? And is that Noah?" One woman heaved, clinging her plums as she gazed from behind a hedge. Another neighbor shook his head, murmuring, "I can't believe it. Father and son shackled together?" Inside the house, the rest of the Newman family had gathered, drawn by the enchantresses and commotion. Victor Newman's face was a mask of fury and unbelief as he surfaced onto the veranda, his eyes locked on the scene. "Nick!" he cried, his voice roaring across the yard. "What the hell is going on then?" Nick turned his head, trying to catch a regard of his father, but the officer's hand on his shoulder averted him from moving. "Dad," he called out, but there was a helplessness in his tone that made Victor's jaw strain. Victoria stepped forward, her hand clinging Lily's, her eyes wide with horror. "Noah!" she cried, her voice breaking as she tried to make sense of what she was seeing. "What, why, how?" The officer signaled toward the auto. "Time's up. Let's go." Nick and Noah changed one last look. A admixture of resoluteness, fear, and a silent pledge to face whatever came next together. Also side by side they were led toward the staying vehicle. The sword bond tinkled with each step, a nipping soundtrack to the agony unfolding. The auto doors slammed shut, the lights reflecting off the polished essence, and as it pulled down, a hush fell over the road. Inside the auto the pressure was suffocating. Noah's aspect was fixed on the window, watching the world pass by in a blur, while Nick leaned back, his hands still bound, mind racing. "We'll get through this," he said, still further to himself than to Noah. I promise. Noah shook his head slightly, his youthful face blenched but determined. I don't know if I can, he rumored, the fear in his voice raw and honest. Yes, you can, Nick said forcefully, turning to meet his son's eyes. We're a platoon. No matter what, we're a platoon. Back at the Newman estate, Victor's fists were gripped at his sides. He'd seen his son shackled. He'd seen his grandson in the same position. The study of what this would do to the family name, to their heritage, to everything he'd erected, it was unsupportable. This isn't over, he murmured under his breath, his eyes narrowing, mind formerly contending with plans, schemes, and the lengths he'd go to cover his family. Meanwhile, the news cameras had arrived, journalists clamoring to capture every detail, every response. The footage would dominate captions, social media, and exchanges across Genoa City for weeks. The image of Nick and Noah Newman, father and son, attended and bind, would come an unforgettable stain in the history of the Newman family. Inside the police station, the two were reserved independently but no way far from each other's sight. The interrogation apartments were cold, fluorescent lights casting harsh murk over their features. Each officer who questioned them was regular, probing for inconsistencies, for slips, for admissions of guilt. But Nick remained collected, calculating, while Noah alternated between defiance and fear, leaning on the assignments his father had tutored him. Hours passed, the pressure inside the station thick enough to cut with a cutter. The attorneys arrived, frantic whispers passed, but the media outdoors made it nearly insolvable for any sense of sequestration to live. Every movement, every word, every response was scanned, broadcasted, and deconstructed. Eventually, in a rare moment alone, Nick turned to Noah, his expression softening. Whatever happens next, he said, we face it together. No regrets. No shame. Just the verity. Noah jounced, the weight of the bind now matched by the weight of responsibility, but also by an unvarying bond with his father. Whatever the consequences, they were in it together. Outside, Genoa City buzzed with enterprise, wrathfulness, sympathy, and unbelief. Musketeers, foes, and neighbors likewise were left to wonder how had it come to this? And more importantly, what would be next in a megacity where secrets, falsehoods, and commitment were no way as simple as they sounded? The police arrest of Nick and Noah Newman would not be just another reproach in Genoa City, it would come the defining moment of a family whose heritage had always teetered between triumph and tragedy. The thoroughfares of Genoa City had no way felt so alive with pressure, or so heavy with expectation, as the day the Newman men were arrested, the sun breaking through a cloudy morning sky while the world outside sounded to hold its breath. Neighbors rumored behind curtains, children browsed from Academy motorcars, and the formerly tranquil Abbott driveway was now a theater of chaos, lined with police buses, journalists holding microphones, camera flashes kindling like sporadic lightning, and a sense of dread that sounded to transcend into every corner of the neighborhood, making the air thick with suspension and query. Nick Newman, always the picture of confidence and charm, now stood firm for just a bit too long before the officer addressed him, his sharp suit wrinkled from his pacing, his typically scrupulous hair slightly mussed, eyes zipping as if to measure the exact distance between him and the men in blue, the clinking of bind echoing in his mind. Like a tolling bell, each sound a memorial that control was slipping through his fritters like beach, that the conglomerate he'd worked lifelessly to make and cover could be jeopardized in a single misstep, while his son Noah, so youthful yet stubbornly proud, imaged his father's pressure but concentrated it with fear and confusion, a admixture of adolescent defiance and the forming consummation that life had just come irrevocably complicated, that the miscalculations of the once, or maybe simply the interpretations of them, were about to review everything he allowed. He knew about family, fidelity, and justice, his hands pulsing as they floated in expectation of the cold grasp of sword, the emblematic weight of authority pressing down with the graveness of 1,000 rumored allegations, and yet, despite the terror, there was a strange pride in standing next to his father, a sense that together, they could ride whatever storm was coming, that the bond they participated was unbreakable indeed under the crushing scrutiny of law and society. The officer's voice cut through the tense air like a scalpel, precise and necessary, demanding their attention with the formal nipping meter that made every word reverberate. Nick Newman? Noah Newman? And in that moment, Nick felt an unnoticeable drift pull at his casket, his precisely constructed confidence wavering as he met his son's eyes and read the same question there. Why us? What did we do? And the answer, if it was nowhere to be set up, buried beneath times of complex family dynamics, secret dealings, and the shadowy lines between right and wrong in a megacity where wealth, power, and influence frequently blurred the legal and the moral, leaving indeed the most principled to wonder if justice was truly unprejudiced or simply another game to be played with advised moves and strategic offerings. Nick's voice, though calm, betrayed him ever so slightly as he asked the ineluctable question, What is this about? The syllables falling into the charged air, met with silence for just a twinkle before the officer produced the bind, the essence glinting in the morning sun, a cold pledge of the ineluctability to come, and Nick swallowed hard, forcing an immutability into his hands that was there, swapping one final, loaded regard with Noah, who imaged the blend of fear, unbelief, and stubborn courage, their connection implied but profound. Wordless understanding that whatever lay ahead, they faced it together. The neighbors, now inspired by curiosity and concern, rumored among themselves, enterprise spreading like campfire, some condemning circumstances beyond the Newman's control, others contriving propositions about retired dishonors and secret dealings, their collaborative imagination transubstantiating the real-time arrest into a story good of tabloid captions, while cameras rolled, landing every blench, every micro-expression, ready to broadcast the moment to a megacity that lived for drama, that thrived on conspiracy, that would anatomize every second for weeks to come. As the officers approached and Nick's wrists were boxed in the cold wave, unyielding sword, he didn't repel, the subtle clink of essence against essence marking a new chapter in a life formerly filled with public trials, private backstabbings, and endless cycles of power struggles. Yet indeed as the bind tensed, he maintained an air of countenance, a memorial to everyone including himself, that indeed in prison one could carry quality, strategy and stopgap, while Noah, youngish, more vulnerable, felt the bite suck deeper, his triumphs glacial, his heart racing, the weight of consequence settling on him with a force that was both thrilling and intimidating, his internal harangue spinning hectically. Was this truly his fault, or simply circumstance? Could the careful moral compass inseminated by his father cover him now, or was it too late, an assignment in the harsh realities of a world where the law could sweep in without notice and unravel indeed the strongest families in a single moment? Please, Nick said, voice edged with despair yet tempered by authority, glancing toward the house where the rest of the Newman family had gathered, each member firmed, caught between unbelief and fear, their faces etched with solicitude, wrathfulness and helplessness, the presence of Victor Newman brewing like an irremovable mountain, his face a mask of fury as he surveyed the scene, fists gripped, mind formerly contending through possibilities, contingencies, and the ineluctable damage to the family name. The conglomerate he'd spent decades cultivating now hovered not by a contender or a commercial rival, but by the hand of justice itself. Dad. Noah's voice was nearly a tale, but it carried the weight of both fear and trust. His aspect fixed on Nick, seeking consolation, a lifeline in the storm of confusion and shame, and Nick, seeing the vulnerability in his son, felt a swell of protectiveness and determination, grunting, "We'll handle this, Noah. Stay calm. Just stay calm." Words that were both pledge and command, a testament to the father-son bond forged through trials, triumphs, and participated secrets. The bind were locked, the officers stepping back as if to illuminate the ineluctability of the situation, the road now quiet except for the hum of enchantresses, the occasional tale of bystanders, and the mechanical click of camera shutters landing every movement, every micro-expression, every flicker of emotion that would latterly be anatomized, batted and overemphasized. While outside, the Newman family was a distraction of feelings. Victoria clinging Lily tightly, her voice breaking as she called out for Noah, Nick casting a transitory regard back toward the house, a admixture of guilt, consolation, and strategy swirling in his mind, and Victor, towering and insuperable, murmuring, "This isn't over." His mind a storm of wrathfulness, plans, and ruthless computations, formerly considering every legal avenue, every particular connection, and every influence point he could exploit to recapture control and cover the family he'd erected. The police auto doors closed, the essence walls sealing off freedom temporarily, the Newmans inside a cocoon of pressure, silence stretching long enough for every twinkle to echo in the confined space, Noah's immature face pale and tight with anxiety, Nick's expression composed yet internally recalibrating strategies, anticipating every question, every blameworthiness, every implicit disclosure, and yet the bond between father and son, tested now further than ever, remained unbroken. A tether to adaptability and participated identity, and outdoors, Genoa City buzzed with enterprise, gossip, and the raw exhilaration of witnessing history. The arrest dominating exchanges, social media feeds, and news broadcasts. The image of Nick and Noah imbibed a symbol of vulnerability, of consequences, and of the high stakes that governed life in a megacity where secrets were currency and power was both guard and armament. Inside the police station, the fluorescent lights cast harsh murk over faces, interrogation apartments were cold and impersonal, yet every regard, every movement, every precisely articulated answer carried immense weight. The officers regular in their questioning, probing for inconsistencies, the attorneys frantic and the media grim, creating an atmosphere where the air itself sounded to press in, where every second was amplified into a test of abidance, strategy, and countenance. Nick leaned back, hands bound, eyes surveying the room, calculating coming way, importing every word, every pause, while Noah alternated between defiance, fear, and attempts to emulate his father's countenance, internalizing assignments on fidelity, courage, and survival. The youthful man realizing that majority was no longer an abstract conception but a reality forced upon him in cold sword and legal trouble. Yet indeed amid this gauntlet, there were moments of connection, transitory aesthetics, rumored solace, participated recollections of family triumphs, subtle nods to participated adaptability, each buttressing the idea that no matter what, they would face this together, father and son side by side, a unit forged in both honor and adversity, standing against the drift of circumstance and public scrutiny. And as night fell, the pressure remained unbroken, undetermined, leaving Genoa City to poach an expectation, the stage set for competitions, exposures, and emotional reckonings that would ripple through every corner of the Newman heritage, defining not just the fate of two men but the moral, social, and emotional geography of the megacity itself, proving that in a world ruled by secrets, power, and family bonds, no bone, not indeed a Newman, was untouchable, and that love, fidelity, and courage would always be tested under the harshest of lights, under the coldest aspect of the law, and under the grim scrutiny of the world around them, a testament to the continuing drama that was and always would be the heart of Genoa City. The night strengthened over Genoa City, but for Nick and Noah Newman, there was no darkness more intimidating than the bone that stretched across their own lives, a black oil painted with query, treason, and the grim weight of consequence. Inside the holding cell, the walls sounded to close in, the fluorescent lights above buzzing constantly, casting harsh, enduring murk that danced across the faces of father and son, amplifying every line, every flicker of mistrustfulness, every micro-expression into commodity monumental, as though the room itself was a judge, jury, and cutthroat all at formerly, and every study, every twinkle, every transitory memory was under the scrutiny of unnoticeable eyes, the press, the law, and a megacity that lived for the kind of spectacle they were now unintentional stars of. Noah shifted on the hard bench, legs pulled tightly against his casket, the bind smelling into his wrists as though buttressing the reality that freedom, at least for now, had been suspended, that the world outside continued in stir while they were trapped in this uncomfortable limbo. And, yet amid the fear, there was a hint of resoluteness, a spark of inherited adaptability passed down from Nick, whose own posture, though restrained, transuded a careful combination of control, computation, and paternal consolation, a communication wordless but imperturbable. We endure, we survive, we map, and no matter what, we face this together. Nick's eyes scrutinized the room, catching the faint reflection of surveillance cameras, noting every shadow, every movement, every tale, each an implicit indication or trouble, while his mind contended through contingencies, possible defenses, public relations strategies, and ways to minimize the fallout. And yet there was a eating fear he couldn't shake, the sense that history would flash back this not as a moment of procedural justice but as a spectacle of Newman vulnerability, a stain on the family name that could resonate for generations, and he felt a stitch of guilt for Noah. Forced into the limelight, forced into battle with forces he'd no way chosen, forced to grow up faster than any teenager should have to. Yet he also felt an inarguable pride, a recognition that the boy was rising to the occasion, standing establishment indeed when every instinct screamed to break down. Outside the station, the megacity palpitated with expectation, the media delirium structure into a fevered pitch.